This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. I received the email recently. A fan of my podcast was listening to a particular episode and came back to me and said, "Don't you understand that so many people never find their calling in life? Aren't you sad?" And then he continued with, "You should cover more of that type of information, those types of guests that can help people with that issue on your podcast." And then continued to say, perhaps tone it down on the trend following some and don't talk about that. So it was an odd backward compliment. He really likes my non-trend following podcast. So do I. That's why I do them. But I responded. I said, no, why should I care any in my life? Why should I waste my time with people that can't find their calling? All I can do as one man is pass along insight that I have, insights that I've learned from others, and that's it. You take it or you leave it. You like it or not. You got a short life, so you need to make decisions fast and determine which path you're going to go down. But I ain't sitting over here having a pity party about somebody that's not getting it figured out or this or that. I just do my own thing and have the people on my show that educate me, teach me. And if all of you out there like it too, well, damn, thank you for coming along on the ride. That's my motivation, plain and simple. It was a really odd piece of feedback, though, because if you go through my interviews over the last 3+ years, so many of my guests are not trend following. So many of them are frankly psychology pros, literally some of the best psychology professors and experts on the planet. Peer recognition, they are at the top. So before you come at me and give me all kinds of feedback about a different direction you want me to go in, well, just please read the guest list first. Do the slightest bit of homework in advance, because you might just find what you're looking for is right there staring back at you. Not surprising, a contrarian salvo out of the gate from me. And contrarian is where I want to go today to give you a perspective about looking at common problems in a different way with a fantastic illustration. We all know the film Moneyball. Fantastic film by Brad Pitt, great book by Michael Lewis. John W. Henry, the example of Moneyball in action. Trend-following trader, buys the Red Sox, 3 world championships, hires Bill James. Statistics. Look at the numbers. Fantastic lessons. And sports never stop with great examples. Today, I want to talk about, play an excerpt, read an excerpt about a high school football coach who never punts. He always goes for it. He's a contrarian like crazy. And there is so much to learn from him. I could care less if you don't like football or do like football. That's not the point. The point is the way of thinking. The way of thinking is timeless. A timelessness in being a contrarian. Now, what I'm going to read today is from the fall of 2015, so it's a few months dated. So for those of you out there that like to think like day trading, that if it's not taking place right now, at this instant, you're not learning anything because it's no longer current, well, please, you're probably at the wrong podcast, because what I do on this podcast is I'd like to bring a certain timelessness. What I'm going to play today, in terms of contrarian thinking, goes on and goes on and goes on. Beautiful stuff. First, let me play a little bit of an audio excerpt.
I'm the head football coach at Pulaski Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas. I call myself a contrarian thinker. There's a lot of contrarian thinkers in the world that have been highly successful. We approach football in a different way. We rarely ever punt, and we onside kick after every touchdown. My name is Kevin Kelly. I'm known as the coach who never punts. All right, line it up. Let's go. 4th and 3. 4th and 3. Know where the line is. Let's go. Got to get to it. You know, when I started it, I was just trying to find a way to win. In my school, I guess in 36 years, they had been to the semifinals of the state playoffs twice, and we couldn't get past that. Miles, that's incomplete because you juggled it. You know, I can see a write-up in the paper, the news story is, crazy nut job coach going for 4th downs. Zach, you got to make up for it. Hastings isn't here. You got to be the guy. I'm a person that believes that humans make mistakes when they base decisions on emotion. The disruptive moment that's helped make me who I am today was I had a really tough life growing up. I've got a dad that is an alcoholic dad, and I think he loves me. But there was an incident at home that occurred. I reflect on that at least once a day, I would say. And sometimes it makes me sad, and sometimes it motivates me, and other times I know that it's helped make me who I am. I've always been a numbers person. I majored in accounting my first probably 2.5 years of college when I took over. I thought my job is to help the kids win as many games. And so we started getting inside the game, started asking little things. Why do we eat the way we do? Why is our pregame the way it is? Why do we punt the ball? I ran across a Harvard professor's study that dealt with the numbers and probability of different spots on the field and different values of those, and I realized that people punt the football and they don't need to. Let's say it's 4th down, we start with the football on our own 3-yard line, and we don't make a first down. The other team's going to score a touchdown about 92% of the time. If we punt the ball, the net punt's going to be on average to about the 37-yard line, and they're going to score a touchdown 77% of the time from that point on the field. That's only a 15% difference. If you add those numbers all together, they'll show you that even in extreme situations, inside your own 10-yard line, you should not punt the football. Where are you going, Cootie? Lord, where are you going? 4th and 6, know where the line is, gotta have it, let's go. The kids are the easy ones to convince. They play video games all the time, and they never punt in football games on video games. So they were the easy ones to convince, and then when I showed my coaches and they realized that it gave us a better chance to win, they were on board, and then the rest you kind of don't worry about. When I first realized that other coaches really figured out that this was not a one-time gimmicky thing, that this was a philosophy, I thought that was disruptive. Doing something different just to be different, that can't sustain itself. It has to contribute to winning or it falls by the wayside. And now, since I've been the head coach in 11 years, we've been to the semifinals 8 times and been to the finals 5 times and won 3 state championships. Oh, no, I didn't ask what you were going to do. I said, why? Because I got tired. Hey, good reason. Y'all get tired, y'all just quit. Finish strong on everything you do. Never quit on anything in your whole life. Yes, sir. My kids that are now out in society come back and say it helps us try to attack problems differently. Not look at the way necessarily everybody else is doing something. There is some success to be had by going and stealing other ideas, but there's also a lot of success to be had from creating your own answers.
That's a few-minute foundation for this coach. Now let me read a great piece from Andy Staples that really describes this in a little more detail. This is from the fall of 2015. I thought Kevin Kelly would be more upset. He certainly seemed upset about 45 minutes earlier. At that moment, the coach who never punts had to break down and punt one time. But after dodging a water bucket bath and celebrating a 40-13 victory last Friday, that snapped the opponent's 84-game home winning streak with his Pulaski Academy players, Kelly seemed quite zen about doing the thing he has spent most of his coaching career trying to avoid. Quote, "I didn't really hate it at all," Kelly said afterward. "It is what it is. If the situation dictates it's something that we have to do. It's all about winning. It's never been about anything else," end quote. If you follow football trends, you've probably already done the math here. Kelly is that coach from Little Rock, Arkansas, who doesn't punt, always attempts onside kicks, and generally defies all of football's conventional wisdom. He's been profiled everywhere, including twice on HBO's Real Sports. He has 138 wins, 24 losses, and 1 tie. That's his record at Pulaski Academy. He has 4 state titles. Last Friday, Kelly brought his team to Highland Park, Texas, to face the only team that beat the Bruins in 2014. The Scots hadn't lost a home game since 1998. I wanted to see for myself why something that seems so insane in theory works so well in practice. After spending a game on the Pulaski Academy sideline, 2 things stood out. First, the Bruins don't win because they don't punt or because they attempt onside kicks every time or because their receivers routinely lateral on plays that aren't the last one of the game. They win because of the attitude Kelly's approach instills on Pulaski Academy's sideline and the mindset it instills on the other sideline. The Bruins always play as if they're down 10 with 90 seconds to go. Think about all the points you've seen scored in that type of situation. The offense plays as if it has nothing to lose. Man, how many times over the years watching my home team, the Redskins, especially the Cowboys, you get a big lead and then boom, it's some kind of like prevent defense and then it's all over. Continuing. The defense tightens, playing to protect the lead rather than to advance the cause. That's every minute of every Pulaski Academy game. Number 2, why hasn't some college coach whose team is perpetually doomed by history and circumstances tried this? Instead of playing conventionally, losing and getting fired every 3 to 5 years, why wouldn't David Beatty at Kansas or Darrell Hazel at Purdue try something dramatic in an attempt to close the talent gap between their teams and their opponents? Nearly every great football innovation has come out of an attempt to close a talent gap. Turning the psychological tables the way Pulaski has might be the next great innovation. The crazy part about Kelly's system is it isn't crazy at all. It's based entirely on math. Each yard line has an expected point value. Each down and distance has an expected rate of success. Punting average is easily calculated, as is punt return average. Years of football data have created these numbers, and while they differ between high school, college, and the NFL, they do not differ as much as you might think. It's fairly easy to use these numbers to create a do I go for it on 4th down formula, similar to the do I hit probability combinations in blackjack. 2 years ago, Paul Dallin wrote an excellent piece at SB Nation's Football Study Hall explaining the math behind Pulaski Academy's madness. Here's a snippet in which Dallin explains why a team should go for a particular 4th down from the 50-yard line. In the example above, the 4th down spot is the 50-yard line. The expected P conversion is 0.50, 50%. The team's average punt, chosen for example purposes, is 40 yards, and the opponent's average return is 10 yards. In this scenario, the expected point value of going for it is 0.0 points, and the expected opponent point value of punting is minus 1.8 points. 0 is more than minus 1.8, so going for it is justified. For most of us, decades spent watching football played a certain way has taught us the only prudent choice is to punt and play defense. But the math indicates that punting is actually the riskier choice. And to interject here, we're talking about risk in terms of math, risk in terms of numbers, not risk in terms of gut feel or risk in terms of I'm risking myself because I'm not doing it how everyone has always done it. Not those kinds of risks. It's Moneyball type risk, John Henry type risk, Billy Bean type risk, Bill James type risk, Richard Dennis type risk, Bill Dunn type risk, Jerry Parker type risk, David Harding type risk, Ewan Kirk type risk, Larry Height type risk, Ed Sakota type risk. All this stuff is the same. And that's why it's so fun to talk about this subject. Because you have an entire generation of people out there on the institutional side and the retail side that as long as they see an equity index going up, they don't care. They don't care how much risk is building in a math sense because they just trust the system. Just like many football coaches just trust the system of not going for it on fourth down and always punting. You see these things? They're all connected. One big recipe to figure out. What's the right recipe, given the ingredients, to give the best taste? Back to the article. So why are college coaches, especially the ones whose teams are likely to lose most of their Power 5 versus Power 5 games anyway, so reluctant to try something that math suggests could work? Another byproduct of watching the Bruins play is that it becomes impossible to keep from yelling at the television when a team punts on 4th and 2 from its 45-yard line. For example, in Purdue's 41-31 loss at Marshall in the fall of 2015, the Boilermakers punted on 4th and 5 from the 50-yard line in the waning seconds of the first half. The Thundering Herd would have had precious little time to get in position for a field goal, but Purdue, which had just completed an 11-yard pass on third down, might have gained 15 or 20 yards and set up a field goal attempt of its own. The math favored the engineering school. Engineering, math, slightly connected. The math favored the engineering school, but the Boilermakers punted anyway. After seeing Pulaski Academy play in person, I imagine this sort of thing will drive me crazy from this point forward. Just to interject here, this is not my experience. I'm reading this great article by Andy Staples of ESPN. Coach Kelly also occasionally finds himself angry at the television, even though he has tried repeatedly to tell himself to stop watching like a math-obsessed coach. I try to watch the game as a fan and not a coach, but even then it does drive me crazy, Kelly says. Especially when it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. I know 100% of the time they ought to go for it. But who am I to question those guys? They have a plan and they're going to stick with it. I have a plan. Let me interject here. The coaches that are not going for it on 4th and 1 really don't have a plan. Their plan is to do what everyone has done for the last 100 years in football, which is the same thing. The same thing that math, expectation, does not support. Continuing with the article. The problem is, if coaches such as Hazel or Beatty stick to conventional football wisdom, the math says they're likely to get fired. In February, Zach Barnett at footballscoop.com put together a handy list of FBS head coaching tenures. The median length is that of Akron's Terry Bowden, who was hired in 2011. So why, knowing that the odds are stacked against them from a talent standpoint, wouldn't a few coaches try something drastic? Well, you do get paid a lot of money being a college football coach, at least from the big schools. I mean, it's millions of dollars. It's not all Nick Saban, but it's still pretty damn good money. Continuing. Some coaches have done just that, but that requires imagination on their part and faith on the part of the administration that hired them. Georgia Tech's Paul Johnson is the only Power 5 coach who runs the option as his base offense. Despite middling results before he got there and academic requirements that limit which recruits he can take, Johnson has won an ACC title. Last year, his team went 11-3, won the ACC Coastal Division, and pushed then unbeaten Florida State to the limit in the ACC championship game. The option takes away the need to recruit blue-chip quarterbacks, allowing Johnson to pull from the far deeper pool of athletic high school quarterbacks who would have otherwise been moved to tailback or safety in college. It also changes the math for offensive linemen. It's tough to find ready-made 315-pounders. Alabama and Ohio State, they're going to get those guys. But the option puts a premium on speed and athleticism for linemen. There are far more leanish 265-pound high school linemen who might grow into 300-pound monsters, and Johnson can recruit from that pool. I want to add, as you start to think about alternative perspectives to solving a problem, whether it's film financing, which I've talked about on this podcast, or trading. I mean, even look back to Richard Dennis. Guys like Bill Dunn, David Harding. They could not compete with Fidelity. They could not compete with Vanguard or George Soros. They had to do something different. They could not hire a massive staff out of the gate. They had to have something compact, mobile, repeatable, that did not require reams and reams of fundamental information to be interpreted by armies of analysts. They had to do something different. I look at the Pulaski High School football coach, different. Georgia Tech football coach, different. Oakland A's, Moneyball, Billy Beane, something different. Continuing with the article. Even the most talent-heavy offense in college football is based on previously crazy ideas designed to close a talent gap. Ohio State trots out a bunch of former five-star recruits, but it runs plays based on single-wing concepts that were drawn up when Urban Meyer was trying to maximize the talent he inherited at Bowling Green in 2001. Bowling Green is not a football powerhouse. Those plays later allowed Utah, one of Urban Meyer's teams, to become the first BCS buster. At Ohio State, former offensive coordinator Tom Herman convinced Meyer to add another element once considered wacky. The no-huddle, hurry-up scheme pioneered in different ways by Rich Rodriguez and Hal Mumme, and the offense got even better. That's just a great example. Urban Meyer, 3 national championships, doing something different. Urban Meyer made a freaking folk hero out of Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow, no doubt a great athlete, a great personality. But it's damn clear Meyer's coaching is what got Tebow all that notoriety, because he couldn't translate it to NFL success, at least for the long run. Because I have to say that Tebow run that he did do to win one playoff game was pretty damn fun and pretty damn alternative. Back to the article. This stuff can work, but someone has to be willing to try it. Kelly has seen the results time and time again. To him, his methods are no longer crazy. They're normal. Yes, his team punted last Friday. It was up 10 in the third quarter, and Highland Park was storming back after falling behind 27-0 in the first half. The Bruins faced 4th and 30 from their own 16. The math said to punt, so Kelly called for a punt. In an angry huddle on the sideline, Kelly briefly explained the mechanics of punting as if he was introducing an Earth custom to an alien species. Highland Park took over in Pulaski territory and immediately got sacked. 2 incompletions later, the Scots faced 4th and 20 from the Pulaski Academy 49. As expected, the Scots chose to punt. The snap flew over the punter's head. The Bruins recovered on the Highland Park 13. They scored a touchdown on the next play, and the game was essentially over. The rugby lateral scheme Kelly's team worked on all summer wouldn't even be necessary. The Bruins would use only 2 plays from that package. It was as if the football gods were sending a message: never, ever punt unless you absolutely have to. Kelly gets attention for the onside kicks and the lack of punting, but every concept he embraces either puts pressure on the other team or minimizes risk for his team. Fellow coaches are aghast when he tells them that his team has no set distances on its out, stop, and curl routes. We don't run any 5-yard stops or any 10-yard outs or anything like that, Kelly says. Everything is push until the defender opens his hips. Then you break or stop or curl. Other coaches ask, how can the quarterback and receiver develop timing if the quarterback doesn't know when the receiver will break? They can't, Kelly replies. But guess what the opponent can't do? If the corner has turned his shoulders or flipped his hips, he can't break on a poorly thrown out and turn it into a pick six. Kelly has traded timing for the removal of risk from the game's riskiest throws. This reaction isn't all that different from coaches who ask Baylor's Art Briles why he lines up his receivers wider than the numbers. After all, because the wideouts are so close to the sidelines, they can't run out routes. But Briles is happy to give up the out if it forces opposing defensive coordinators to choose whether to float a safety out further to help the cornerback, in which case the Bears will run the ball, or leave the corner on a very lonely island, in which case Baylor will throw to him. Now, I must add, as a former Washington Redskins fan at this point in time, Art Briles is personally responsible for ruining the Redskins. Well, not exactly. But he made this damn quarterback, RG3, look so good that the boy wonder owner of the Washington Redskins blew years and years and years of first-round picks to get this guy, and it doesn't work in the NFL. At least not yet. What works in the NFL is dropping back and throwing. Whether it's Doug Williams, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw. I mean, Russell Wilson, he's about the only guy that moves some that has pulled off a Super Bowl victory. Just a side note, a side tangent. Back to the article. A friend of Kelly's who used to coach high school ball in Arkansas and who had some ideas about offense that were once considered pretty bizarre has told Kelly that football is football, and the concepts that work at the high school level can also work at the college level. That friend is Gus Malzahn, who has a national title as Auburn's offensive coordinator and an SEC title as the Tigers head coach. So why hasn't some college team scooped up Kelly or at least stolen all of his ideas? Unlike the systems that Malzahn and Briles brought from the high school level to college, Kelly's bucks conventional wisdom so much that it seems too radical. As Kelly says, it all comes down to risk aversion. The coaches I've talked to, a lot of them will say, we think you're right, we think we should, but they're afraid of the media or the fans or losing their jobs. I just think that's the bottom line. Eventually, some college coach will try a version of Kelly's scheme. Maybe some college will hire Kelly. Or maybe some coach in Beatty or Hazel's situation will do the math and realize his job is only going to last for a few years if he doesn't try something dramatic and change the probabilities. Going punt-free may not work, but playing conventionally probably won't either. Why not try? It may be something like the forward pass was way back when, Kelly says. At first, not a lot of people did it. Now it's the dominant part of the game. I actually don't want my style to catch on because now we have an advantage. Again, a great article from Andy Staples at ESPN. Building on that great alternative take on playing American football, let's think about the markets today in 2016. Oil, 12-year low. NASDAQ, far lower than where it was in the year 2000. 16 years later, Tesla down almost 50%. Apple down close to 30%. Netflix down over 30%. LinkedIn down well over 50%. Twitter over 50%. For those of you out there that have been attempting to analyze those various markets from a fundamental perspective, attempting to take in whatever data you might take in to tell you to either be out of the companies that I just mentioned, to be out of oil, or to be long all of those markets, I guarantee you, you have no fundamental information that connects to those moves. You have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. If you try and tell yourself, if you try and tell a friend, a colleague, or your customer that you have fundamental information that dictates why LinkedIn dropped over 40% in a day, why oil is at a 12-year low, you are just lying. You're lying to yourself, you're lying to your friends, you're lying to your associates, you're lying to your colleagues, you're just absolutely full of shit. You know it, I know it. We all know it. Unfortunately, there are some people out there that don't yet have the market experience to know the level of scam that you are. That's just the bottom line. Janet Yellen coming out and saying, we don't yet have the legal authority to drop interest rates negative But we're looking for ways around that. Everyone knows that's wrong. Everyone knows there's a moral problem there. But what did I just do? I just started inserting my fundamentals. I think it's despicable that the United States Federal Reserve will go to negative interest rates. It's disgusting. It's amoral. It's thievery. It's atrocious. Now, what do all of my opinions get you? Absolutely nothing. That's what's going to happen over the next 6 months, like the prior 6 years. Opinions, opinions, opinions. You need something different. You need a different type of attack. Again, oil, LinkedIn, Tesla, Twitter. How do you play those moves? Do you play them with predictions, forecasts, sales data? None of that works. Because again, none of you out there that purport to have fundamental information knew any of this was going to happen. I did not know it was going to happen either. But that's the honest take on this situation. And so once you know that you don't know, the unknown unknowns, well, I think it's a hell of a lot smarter to come over to the side of the Pulaski High School football coach and look at this world a little bit different. Don't try to be like your neighbors. Don't try to be like your friends. You're on an island. You're by yourself. If you feel the need to be in a group selfie with 15 other people doing fake smiles, that's not the way to go, man. That's not the way to get ahead. You want to be a contrarian. The evidence is out there. If you want the evidence for why being a contrarian is a damn smart thing to do, you will find it. If you don't want it, you will not find it. I paraphrase Ed Seykota. Everyone gets what they want, win or lose. If you lose a lot, you got exactly what you wanted to lose. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, Trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.